All right, so in this series, this video is the third in the Importing Non-ASAP Brands series. So at this point, you should have already done the first step, which was cleaning up your data sheet. The second step was creating the variations importer. And now this is the third step, creating the actual display importer. So as of right now, you should have products with all of their information, SKU, pricing, categories, images, everything already on your site, but none of those that were just imported are actually showing up on the front end. So that's where we are now. We're creating the display one, which will generate all the front end pages and attach the products to them. So the first step is to go ahead and create a new importer. Same as the last video, I'm using an already existing one just so we have a live example to save us some time. But in order to get to this page, you will need to go through structure, feed types, and then you will add a feed type. In this case, we named it the display import, which will bring you up to this page. You'll name it, and then once you save, you'll get all these options. So for the fetcher, it's going to be an upload file, same as the last one. Parser, same as the last one, leave it on CSV. The processor will be a product. Keep in mind the last one, the last importer that we made, the processor was for the variations. This one is for just the product. So product, leave the product type on default. For the settings, import period, no matter what you're doing, it's always going to be off. Fetcher settings, can leave those on default. Parser settings as well, leave it on default. For the processor settings, English by default for the language. For the existing products, we're not updating any existing because at this point, you're creating a whole bunch of new products. So this one does not apply. For previously imported items, just keep, doesn't really apply in this situation. For product expirations, they're never going to expire. And you can leave these on default as well. And then in case you would save, and after you save, you'll head over to mapping. Now at this point, you can use the same exact data sheet that you already were. And you should have two columns specifically in that data sheet, one for the grouping title and one for grouping. The grouping title is going to be the title of that page. So if you have My Brand t-shirts, so you're going to have a page for My Brand t-shirts, then the variations in here are going to list My Brand t-shirt small, My Brand t-shirts medium, My Brand t-shirts large, etc. So the product title is just that main page title. So the grouping title in your data sheet. And then the grouping is going to list out all the SKUs, all the product SKUs that are actually included on that page. And they're going to be type separated. At this point, these should already be established in your data sheet, but of course, add them to your importer. So first, go ahead and bring in that source column for the grouping title through here, in case you need a reminder. You'll select the target first, in which case here it's the title. And then for that source, you will add new CSV source and just type out the title, or best to copy paste from your data sheet that column header straight in here. So I'm going to delete this because this is a replica of this one up here. All right. So that's for your grouping title. You'll add the product variations as well. You'll map them out to the variations and then add that column header. And then this one will not have a column on your data sheet, but for this new system on Drupal 8, you do need to have a store target. So you're going to choose the stores and then feed UUID. Leave that on here. And then I'll explain this a little more once we get into the tamper, but for right now, let's just finish the mapping section. Heading over to these next columns. For the grouping title, in this situation, during the last video when we were importing the variations, the SKU was the unique one. In this case, since we're going to have multiple SKUs under one actual page, one title, the title in this situation is going to be unique. And then the rest can pretty much leave be. If this isn't already referenced by SKU, make sure to edit and reference by SKU, which it should already be. For the reference ID here, I think it will give you options between a name and here you can just leave it on ID. This depends on what you set in your tamper, which right now for us, we're going to use the ID. And this guy came back, so let me save. I don't want you there. Okay, cool. So at this point, we're going to head over to the tamper tab. And over here for the title, you can just leave it alone. Variations. Remember I said they're pipe separated, so just like in the last video, when you had multiple images or multiple categories for a product, you had to add this explode filter. So it knew once it hit the pipe that it's starting the next entry for that field. So you would add plugin, choose explode, and then in the settings, make sure that this is the pipe symbol. And the pipe symbol is, again, it's right above your enter key on your keyboard. So just shift and then click that enter right above the enter key, and you're going to hit it right there. And then here as well, add this filter items plugin so that it filters out any empty fields. So just add plugin, filter items, and then I don't think there's any, this one's just a blank setting. So make sure you have explode and then filter items. Now for the feed UUID, going into the stores. In this new system, it actually has an identifier for your store, which on 99.999% of sites, the ID is going to be just the number 1 because we don't really recycle sites ever. So the initial store that was created, the very first store, ID number 1, is going to be your store. So what you'll want to do on this stores field is add a plugin to rewrite, since there isn't a column, edit. And then for the replacement pattern, this is where that ID mapping field, when it asked, let me head back over there real quick. All right, I just cut into this page so I can kind of explain, but this referenced by in the summary for the UUID. It's an ID, so in the tamper, it's going to be an ID as well. If this was set to the name, referenced by name, then you would have to go and find the actual name, then you can copy and paste. If you're unsure, or if you want to double check the name or the ID for this guy, what you can do is hover over commerce, go to configuration, store, and then stores. That will bring you over to this page. It'll list out all the stores on your site, which you might see your actual site name here, or you might see just web, or you might see default, whichever it is. If that reference by in the mapping settings was named, then you can just copy and paste this here. If it isn't, then once you, if you look in the bottom left corner of this screen right here, when you hover over the edit button, you see it has the actual site link and then /store/ and then a number. That is your store ID. So this web store was the first one that was set up on this dev site. So the ID for this one is number 1. So that's how you can find the ID if you're unsure, if you want to double check, whichever it may be. But heading back over here, paste that ID in there and then just submit. And that's everything for the tamper. And at this point, manage fields, the form display, and the manage display, these are kind of pointless on the importer. You don't need to worry about them. So at this point, your importer is set up. Now you just need to actually import the data sheet. So attach it to an importer here. So next step is hover over content and then feeds. And you'll want to add a feed of the type display import, just like here. So add feed, display import, place your title here, whether it's initial brand X import or whatever it may be. Add your title, upload your file, and you can leave everything here on default. So the delimiter, comma separated file, delimited by commas, leave that unchecked, leave it as active, authoring information, default, all of this. And then you would save and import. Once you save and import, it'll take this file and then upload that file, in which, in this case, it will upload all those displays and attach all the variations based on the SKU to them. At this point, you can either, so the site needs to re-index with all the new products that you just added in order for them to show up on the product catalog page in your store. So at this point, it is going to index the site in batches of, I think it's 50 products per hour. So you can either let it run its course and just wait a couple hours for it to finish, or however long you need, or you can just force it all to reindex right away. So if you want to do it manually, just get it done with on the spot. You can hover over configuration, search and metadata, and then search API. You can click on the product search index. And then down here, never clear all index. The only one you'll want to pay attention to is this first one. So you will queue all items for reindexing. It'll ask you to confirm. And then you will see this index now is going to actually light up. So it will turn clickable. And that would be the next step. So yeah, just come over to this page, queue all items for reindexing, and then index now. And then you'll see like a progress bar come up here. And once it's at 100, when you go back to your front end and go to shop products or your product catalog in general, you'll actually see all the products that you imported pop up. But yeah, that's pretty much how you add non-ASAP brands to your site. I hope this helped.